Margaret, and the Garden of Prosperity. Margaret had always imagined retirement as a peaceful chapter of life. Quiet mornings with a cup of tea, afternoons filled with books, and the occasional visit from family. But now, at 72, she found that the silence in her home wasn't always comforting. Some days it felt empty. Her little house in the suburbs had once been full of life. She had spent decades as a school teacher, her days buzzing with the laughter and energy of young minds. When she wasn't teaching, she was raising her own children, keeping up with their endless chatter, their scraped knees, their stories from school. But now the kids were grown, with families of their own. The halls that had once echoed with noise were now still. Lately, she had found herself worrying more about money than she liked to admit. Her pension was steady, but with prices rising, every trip to the grocery store felt like a reminder that things weren't as easy as they used to be. She wasn't struggling, not yet, but she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that she needed to be more careful, that she had to make sure what she had lasted. One crisp Saturday morning, feeling the weight of another long, quiet weekend ahead, she decided to visit the local farmer's market. She hadn't been in a while, and she missed the simple pleasure of wandering through the stands, breathing in the scent of fresh bread and flowers, hearing the friendly chatter of vendors calling out their specials. As she strolled past baskets of apples and jars of honey, something caught her eye. A small wooden stall, covered in lush green plants. Some were tiny succulents in ceramic pots. Others were taller, with broad, vibrant leaves. It was a burst of life. Tucked into the corner of the market, behind the table, stood an elderly woman with silver hair pinned neatly in a bun. She was carefully brushing soil from the rim of a terracotta pot when she looked up and smiled. "Looking for a little luck?" the woman asked. Margaret hesitated, then chuckled. "I don't know about luck," she said. "Just something to brighten up my home." The woman nodded knowingly. "Plants can do more than just decorate a space," she said. "Some are believed to bring prosperity, balance, even a bit of good fortune. A little greenery might be just what you need." Margaret raised an eyebrow. She wasn't one to believe in things like luck or energy flow, but something about the woman's words made her pause. Could it really be that simple? Could a few plants change the feeling of her home, maybe even shift something in her life? She glanced at the rows of plants, their leaves shining in the morning light. Maybe it was silly, but what if, just what if, there was something to it? She smiled, curiosity getting the better of her. "All right," she said. "Tell me more. Have you ever wondered if there's a simple way to bring luck and prosperity into your home?" Join Margaret on her journey. You might just find the inspiration to create a home filled with warmth, abundance, and a little bit of magic. Margaret carried the small aloe vera plant home, cradling it in her hands, as if it were something delicate, something important. The woman at the market had spoken about it with such quiet certainty, saying it would clear stagnant energy, open up space for better things to flow. It sounded nice, almost poetic, but Margaret wasn't sure if she believed in such things. Still, she placed the aloe vera in the center of her dining table, right where the morning light from the window would reach it. Its thick, waxy leaves stretched outward, a deep green against the simple white ceramic pot. She had to admit, it did brighten up the space a little. For the first few days, nothing much changed. Margaret went about her usual routine, making tea in the mornings, reading in the afternoons, tidying up small corners of the house that never seemed to stay organized. But then, slowly, she started noticing subtle differences. The air felt fresher, lighter somehow. Maybe it was the plant's natural ability to purify the air, or maybe it was just the act of adding something living to the space. Either way, she found herself taking deeper breaths, feeling a little more at ease in her own home. One evening, as she sat at the dining table, she realized how long it had been since she truly enjoyed sitting there. Lately, she had taken most of her meals on the couch, half watching television, half lost in thought. But now, with the aloe vera in front of her, the table didn't feel so empty anymore. She started paying more attention to the little plant, running her fingers along the smooth leaves, noticing how they seemed to hold so much water, so much life. She even looked up a few care tips online, learning that aloe vera had been used for centuries, not just for skincare, but for purification, for drawing out negativity. Margaret chuckled to herself. Could a plant really do all that? A week passed. One morning, as she was sorting through a small pile of unopened mail, she found an envelope she had forgotten about, one that had been tucked between magazines and old bills. It was from the government. Confused, she opened it, only to find a check inside. Her heart skipped a beat. A tax refund, one she had completely forgotten existed. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to cover her bills for the next month, maybe even enough for a nice dinner out, something she hadn't treated herself to in a long time. She sat there, staring at the check, then at the little aloe vera plant on the table. It was just a coincidence, wasn't it? Or maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something new. The following weekend, Margaret returned to the farmer's market. She hadn't planned to. She had just intended to take a walk, maybe buy some fresh produce. But somehow, she found herself standing in front of the same little plant stall once. Again. The elderly woman looked up from where she was tending to a row of small pots and smiled knowingly. "Ah," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "You're back." Margaret hesitated. "The aloe vera's doing well," she admitted. "And well, something good happened after I brought it home." The woman's eyes twinkled. "That's how it starts." Margaret raised an eyebrow. "So, what's next?" Without hesitation, the woman reached behind her and pulled out a small, delicate plant, a lucky bamboo, its green stalk spiraling upward from a glass vase filled with smooth pebbles. "This one is for stability," the woman said, pressing the plant into Margaret's hands. "Financial and emotional. Place it by your front door. Let it welcome opportunity into your life." Margaret studied the little plant. It was different from the aloe, thinner, more graceful, but there was something about it that felt calming, balanced. She brought it home and found a spot for it right near her front door, just as the woman had suggested. Every time she walked past it, she found herself admiring the way its stalks twisted upward, as if reaching for something unseen. For the next few days, life carried on as usual. She went about her routine, but she felt a quiet sense of anticipation, as if something just beyond her reach was waiting to unfold. Then, one afternoon, the phone rang. "Grandma!" Margaret recognized the voice immediately. It was Adam, her grandson. There was something different in his tone, something lighter, filled with energy. "I got the job," he said, barely able to contain his excitement. "After all these months, they finally called me back. I start next week." Margaret blinked in surprise. She knew how hard Adam had been searching for steady work. He had been discouraged, feeling like no matter what he did, nothing seemed to work out. And now, out of nowhere, he had landed something good. She glanced toward the front door, where the lucky bamboo sat quietly in its vase. A coincidence? Maybe. But Margaret couldn't help but feel that something had shifted, that doors were beginning to open, not just for Adam, but for her as well.